Hey, it's me, JT, and bienvenido de nuevo to un otro video. Сегодня, today, we're going to talk about, as promised, the excuses that people make for why they can't learn another language. When I was making this video, I kind of started to bum myself out thinking of all the excuses that people make because honestly, I don't really like excuses, and this is a solution based channel here. I'm still going to talk about some of the excuses that I hear, but I'm going to have some bonus information for you. So, we're going to talk about how to actually go about setting a plan and all that good stuff. Be sure to stay tuned for that. Anyway, I'm going to grab my handy dandy notebook and yeah. First excuse that people make, not having enough time. It does take a lot of time to learn a language. Obviously, we're not disputing that here. But, like, from my experience, a lot of times when people say that they don't have time to do something, usually that just means that there's poor time management. And I'm so 100% talking to myself as well. There's 24 hours in a day. And so screen time and the amount of time we spend just aimlessly surfing the internet for cheap dopamine, as they say, really cuts into the amount of time that we could be spending in areas more productive. So if you want to learn a language but you feel as though you don't have enough time, I would challenge you to really take a look at how much time you spend doing things like scrolling social media or doing things like partying or doing things like recovering from your partying. Maybe in some of these areas you can reallocate that time towards actually achieving your goals, which in this case is learning another language. Number 2, you don't feel like you're smart enough to learn a language. I've literally heard people say, oh, I would learn Spanish, but I'm not smart enough. And it's just like, this is just a mindset thing. You don't have to be smart to learn a language. Think about it. You already know a language. Everyone on this planet, barring extreme circumstances, has learned at least one language. And so that shows, the fact that you understand what I'm saying shows that you have the mental capacity to learn a language. And really, it's just a matter of putting in the time and the effort and the energy to learning another one. And so usually when people say that they're not smart enough to learn a language, it's not that they're not smart enough to learn the language. It's just that for whatever reason, they don't believe that they can, or they don't actually put in the effort that is required. Number 3, this goes along with the second one about not being smart enough to learn a language, is, oh, I don't have a good memory. All right, once again, a lot of this is going to be a mindset type thing. And memory is a lot like exercise. Even if you don't have a good memory, quote unquote, but if you train your memory and you actually go through the process of learning new words and memorizing new things, your memory will increase. So you might say that you don't have a good memory, therefore you can't learn another language. But I'll say to you, if you don't have a good memory, then start learning another language and your memory will get better over time as you progress. And number 4, can't afford the lessons. It's 2024. The internet is in every element of our lives, essentially. At this day and age, it's really hard to justify not having access to certain information. There's libraries, there's the internet, there's YouTube. If you're watching this, you have YouTube. You can learn pretty much whatever language you want on YouTube for free. So there really is no excuse for not being able to afford languages, and not even that. But let's think about it, right? Depending on where you're at, for example, I live in the United States, and so if I wanted to get a tutor in a different country, which I have done, usually that conversion rate works in my favor. And so if you're someone who's in the United States or in an English-speaking country, but you feel as though you can't afford to hire a tutor, maybe look outside your country to the place where your target language is, because there may possibly be a chance that the conversion rate for your currency is a lot more favorable, and so you'll be able to get an actually pretty decent package for relatively less than what you would be able to get if you hired another person within your own country. So, once again, it's the internet. Take advantage of it. All right. Now that I got through those top 4 excuses, I'm going to pivot. We're going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to talk about just some of the things that you can do to set yourself up for success if you do decide you want to learn a language. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 things listed here, and so we're going to go right into it. So first, set a goal. I talked in a previous video about having the goal for whatever language you want to learn. If you want to learn a language for reading and understanding different texts for historical reasons, literary criticism, whatever have you, then that's a valid goal. If you want to learn to speak a language so you can communicate with your grandparents, that's another valid goal. There is no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of deciding what it is you want to learn the language for. Having that goal written down will help you in the times where you feel less motivated. And trust me, there will be those times that come. But if you have a clear goal of why you're doing this, it'll help you keep that momentum going. After you set your goal, the next thing you want to do is you want to schedule study time. Essentially, what I do, especially studying multiple languages at one time, is I literally go on my calendar and I schedule. Maybe on this day, I'll do a couple hours of Spanish. On this day, I'll do a couple hours of Russian. And on another day, I'll do a couple hours of French, for example. There's several ways that you can study multiple languages, but that's a whole nother video in itself. The point is that if you schedule time in your calendar, then 1, it solves the issue of not having time. And then 2, you can actually see and actually remember and have it on the front of your mind that yes, you are actively working towards a goal and you're actively setting time aside, reasonable amount of time to achieve this goal. The third thing is going to be create a learning plan. So your learning plan is going to be related to whatever your goal is. For example, if your goal is to read, then your learning plan might be something like, okay, read 1 news article in the target language each day. Another one might be read 1 book in your target language each quarter. So like 3 months, right? Every 3 months you read a book in your target language, or maybe every month depending on what your level is in the language. But start small. Maybe find you some kids' books or something like that. eBay, Amazon, these are all good places. Or you can find, once again, free PDFs on the internet. Another thing that you can do is maybe you'll schedule time to watch a grammar video, and maybe you'll set time to where you'll listen to a podcast or just listen to some type of content in your target language. It's not about, especially initially starting out, it's not about understanding what's being said, because you won't understand what's being said. But it's about getting that exposure, hearing how the language sounds, hearing what the flow is, hearing how the words are separated, and just any types of tonalities or anything like that. That's what just listening to some type of content will help you do. When I lived in Mexico, I would watch 1 grammar video every day. Spanish Butterfly was my favorite grammar teacher for Spanish. And so I would watch one of her videos that usually range about 30 minutes, and I would listen to 1 podcast or watch 1 YouTube video from a Spanish-speaking content creator on whatever topic that I was interested in, and just hear it. Like I said, it's not about understanding what they're saying, it's just about hearing it. And of course, being in Mexico, I also had the leisure to go out and practice speaking to people. That helps too if you have the opportunity to do that. Maybe part of that language plan would be spend 30 minutes every day talking to someone on a language exchange app like italki or Tandem or HelloTalk, so you can get that speaking practice in. So whatever it is, you want to set your plan so that it hits all of the elements of your goal. So We talked in a previous video that those main elements will be reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Your language plan, if you want a full comprehensive understanding of the language, should tailor all of those. But it might be that in the beginning you focus just on, say, reading and listening, for example. And so you do that for a couple months. And then once you get very comfortable with that, you're understanding what you're reading, you're understanding what you're hearing, you might implement, okay, now you're going to practice journaling in your target language and practice speaking with a language exchange partner. Once again, there is no right or wrong answer for what your plan is. Set your pace, determine what you want your pace to be, and set your pace in a sustainable way. If you go about it thinking, okay, I'm just going to study 5 hours of Russian every single day, it might be a little difficult to do that, especially if you've never done this before. And so don't set yourself up for failure. Do something that's sustainable, review your plan, and change if necessary. Okay, so moving on from that, the next point is going to be log your progress. I admit this is something that I personally could improve on. I'm really bad about logging what I actually accomplished during the day. It's hard to improve what you don't measure. The fact that you're tracking your progress shows that it's a certain level of importance to you. I am speaking directly to myself right now. So get some type of journal, put the date, and write down what you did. Okay, I learned 10 new verbs today. I learned the passé composé for French today. Or I read 2 articles. I translated a song today. Whatever it is, take note of your progress, and that way you can really see what you're doing and see the progress that you've been making. I guess theoretically it would be a morale booster. So, like I said, I'm really bad about logging my progress, if I'm being honest with you. So that's something that I'm going to have to get better on myself. And then lastly, use what you learn. Okay. If you don't use it, you will lose it. When I lived in Mexico, I was there for 3 months. And while I was there, people always said, wow, your level of Spanish is really good for just being here for 3 months. First off, while I was there, as I said, I was watching grammar videos every day. Everything around me was in Spanish. I was intentionally learning new words, studying verbs, and really trying to get a grasp on grammar concepts. And I made some friends. They didn't speak English, and so I just had that exposure, and so I was able to pick it up. But I found that when I came back to the United States, after about 2 years, my Spanish really dropped off because I just wasn't using it. I mean, yeah, I would use it here and there, like say if I went to a taco truck or something like that, but I was using Spanish only a fraction of the amount that I was using it when I was actually in Mexico, which makes sense. But it just goes to show that if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And so whatever you're doing, if you're learning how to read, keep reading. If you're learning how to write, keep writing. If you're learning how to listen and understand, keep listening to content. And if you're learning how to speak, speak. You actually have to speak. The best way to learn how to speak is to speak. Everything that you're learning for your language, don't be afraid to use it. Even if people laugh, it's not that people are laughing in a negative kind of way. Sometimes when we're learning a language, we don't know what some of the connotations are, but we just have to use it. Quick story. I tutor, and I don't want to say students, but one of the people that I was tutoring, he told me a story about his first language was Mandarin. But he told me a story about how he was in an English professional environment, and his boss's son had to go to the bathroom, and so the boss was away, and he was talking to the son and said, okay, so do you have to go take a shit? Pardon my language, but that's what this is about, right? But that's just one of those examples to where someone could be using a language, you may be using a language, and you say something like that. You may go to a kid and say, do you need to take a shit? Instead of saying, would you like to go to the bathroom, or do you need to go to the bathroom? There was nothing malicious about it. It's just the way that it is. It's just the way the language is. I'm using that example unfiltered just because it really shows the realities of learning a language. And so don't feel bad if people laugh at you. It's just a part of the experience. That's what makes it fun. Be a good sport about it. Learn. It's always a learning experience. And the next time, you'll know how to respond in a similar situation. If you stuck this long, if you stuck to the end of the video, congratulations. I'm going to give you a bonus tip. Have realistic expectations. There is an endless supply of videos on YouTube that say, be fluent in whatever language in 30 days, even if you don't know anything about it already. Okay, look, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that most of us have a life. So if you're really serious about learning a language, you have to have realistic expectations, because if you go into thinking that you should be 100% fluent in a language, which, I mean, what is fluency, right? That's a whole nother topic. But if you go into it thinking that you expecting to have some advanced level of proficiency, like a C1, C2 level of proficiency in 3 months, that's probably not very realistic. Part of staying encouraged and staying motivated and keeping the journey fun is to have realistic expectations, knowing that it's going to take time, it's going to take effort. You might forget some things here and there. You might have to go back and revisit some things. You might say some things that sound dumb to native speakers, but it's all okay. It's a part of it. So just have that expectation and don't let it scare you. Well, hopefully it was coherent and I wasn't all over the place. Just to recap, set your goal, have study time scheduled, come up with a plan, track your progress, and use it so you don't lose it. And the bonus was have realistic expectations. Well, I thank you all for tuning in. I'd be super interested to know, which language are you studying, or have any of these things, have any of the excuses been a challenge to you? I know they have been to me in the past. Or which one of these tools in your toolkit could you improve on or could you implement to help you in your journey? I'd love to hear it. None of us are perfect, but we're all every day striving towards perfection, especially when it comes to language learning. I hope you guys have a good one, and I will catch you on the next video. So long.